And we are live. Today, our guest is Chris. We're going to do some vanilla SE. Welcome, Chris.
Hi,
Would
thanks
you
for
like
having
to
me.
tell us a bit about yourself? And I want to make sure that we get your contact information for your podcast in our description. So hit me up with that after.
Okay, great, thanks. Um, so yeah, a little about me. I have a undergraduate degree in classical education. I went to a great books program and studied the Western canon. So right off the bat, had a lot of familiarity with Plato, and so then Socrates, and the street epistemology, which I've only just recently become aware of, seems to be dialing into his methodology, and I love that. So that really piqued my interest. We got to have an interesting conversation a couple weeks ago, I think something like that, and I really enjoyed that. That's for a podcast that I'm still working on that is not yet released, but I definitely will be passing along info about that when it's ready. Um,
Okay.
I also then did a master's degree in Eastern classics when I was done with my undergrad, and that kind of gave me kind of filled in some blind spots and let me explore some curiosities I had in thought, um, that I still completely am in love with, and is going to probably relate to the topic that I'd like to explore with you today.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I You asked me earlier if you tell me the claim ahead, and I said no, because it's so cool if we can show the process of getting to a claim, if it's not already something immediately examinable. So lay it on me.
Okay, great. So the claim that I'm making today is that immediate knowledge of reality is primarily subjective, while
Mm,
objective knowledge of reality is theoretical.
objective reality is theoretical, and s- Kimberly's saying I'm misunderstanding that. Okay, so
One more time? Do you want me to?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay, so immediate knowledge of reality is
yes,
primarily subjective,
yes. Okay,
while
coming in through my
object.
senses, and it's a one-on-one. It's a one to the view thing. Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Mhm. Yep, and objective knowledge of reality is theoretical.
Okay, and when you say theoretical, does that mean like uh, theory in the colloquial sense, or theory in the scientific sense, like theory of gravity versus I have a theory about why somebody did a thing.
More
Again,
in the
very different
more in
level.
the scientific sense, in that it's
Okay,
robust.
it's
Um,
robust.
uh,
Okay,
yes, trustworthy and dependable, worthy
all
of
right.
belief, worthy of belief. You know, so yeah, yeah. Immediate knowledge. Immediate is also, I'm using that word in a somewhat technical sense, and
Mm-hmm.
the idea of it, like it is it is not passing through. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the least amount of mediation possible is the direct experience itself.
Okay. Can somebody on the production team look at the YouTube feed and tell me if this claim is like showing it long? So it might be wrapping multiple lines or something. So we may have to edit it. Kimberly can maybe edit the claim if it turns out too big. But you guys look, I'm going to keep going. How confident are you that that this is true?
I'm very confident about this.
Okay.
I would peg my confidence at about 95%.
Okay.
And just as a point of clarity, that the interesting things about this claim
Mm-hmm.
come with its implications.
Okay.
So I suspect it isn't a terribly difficult claim to establish or defend or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm certainly open to any which
Sure.
way that's going to go. Um, but as I think I watched a couple of your videos, and sometimes things get resolved quickly, and
Mm-hmm.
that's great. But the interesting parts about this claim come with some of the other things that it opens up, and I'm not entirely clear whether those things would
Mm-hmm.
be considered claims or not. Um,
Maybe.
but so I just wanted to put that out in the onset.
Okay. So let me start by saying that the claim I see almost entirely definitional. Uh, it seems obvious and easy to show me that my everything that comes in through my senses is necessarily subjective to me, no doubt. So that that one's hard for me to argue against or even come up with a hypothetical of, as long as we agree on that meaning of subjective. So yes, uh, that things outside are objective. Sorry, that the objective things are theoretical. Again, sort of almost defines objective and theoretical together. And maybe you could tell me what objective means. That's one thing we didn't go further on, because maybe that's the only thing I would find any question. As long as what you tell me objective means works well with what you tell me theoretical means, now I'm now I'm just good on your claim. I find no error at all in it, and we can go to those implication things and go deeper. Go for it. So
Okay.
objective.
Yeah, so objective knowledge of reality is how I was talking about it. And so that would be um, the existence of others, for example. Uh, when a child starts to realize that other minds have different experiences and different sets of information and awareness than their own, they establish something that's called theory of mind. I think we actually talked about this a little before, but the idea is
Yeah, we may.
around say 3 years old or something, a child starts to develop this working theory of the fact that like not all of the information and experience in their head is shared. And so
Hmm.
when they put something into a box and nobody was able to see them put it in there, you ask a 2-year-old, and they're more likely to think you already know what's in the box. When they're 3 to 4 years old, they figured out nobody saw me put it in the box; they wouldn't know it was there. Um,
Hmm.
and so by testing the world, they developed this rudimentary theory that
Hmm.
there is another mind out there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different ways of thinking about that, but it's not so it is a an operational theory, a construct that
Hmm.
they make about the
Yes.
world with their experiences and things like that. So that's what I mean is that
Hmm.
that knowledge of what's outside of yourself, that kind of knowledge is theoretical.
Yes. Good. Good. Is that what we define as objective?
I'm open to interpretations. That's what I'm calling it.
Okay. I'm thinking objective is as opposed to subjective. And in this case, subjective means that it is uniquely visible to myself. My whatever comes through my perceptions is my own subjective perspective, and it can only be because of the limitations of my senses from one place. I can't see everything at once. I can't really know what's beyond my horizons. Things like that. I can't even. I shouldn't even trust strongly that my senses aren't lying to me because I uh, I'm very aware of um, what do you call visual not hallucinate things where I might see something written and it appears to be moving and it's not. It's ink
Right.
on paper and it appears to be moving. Those kind of things. I can already tell there are ways in which my senses just get it flat wrong. So I shouldn't have
Yes.
high confidence that my senses are informing me of reality. So I agree on that part of the subjective, no doubt.
Well, to be clear though, the immediacy of this experience comes before any understanding that there's anything else.
Hmm.
So even to qualify the experience as being subjective,
Hmm.
as though there was a distinction, is I'm trying to establish the primacy of that reality. So like
Okay.
the experiences occur and I'm fine with us discussing them as subjective, but just as a
Okay.
clarity around like the emphasis of what I'm trying to get across, they they come they're so primary that they really create the foundation of reality. And the experience itself is reality as we know it, and
Okay.
our theoretical understanding will shape what we believe reality to be, but the
Okay.
experience itself is the only thing that ever actually occurs. Nothing other than an experience actually occurs. If you follow me there.
Yes. Kimberly, will you bring my back? Um, I'd like to digress into the TikTok question. The Tic Tacs. Are you familiar with Tic Tacs? Question.
I heard you talking about a
Let's see.
tiny bit. Not no, I'm
Yeah.
not very familiar with it.
Okay. So, little box of candies. Brand not important. You can see there are candies in there. So, do we agree objectively there's more than one of these inside? Because if it's zero, it's neither odd nor even. But there's more than one candy in the box.
So mm, that we're getting into like, and I don't really like to do a lot of like semantical argumentation or anything like
Okay.
that. But I want to be clear that like the like I could be happy to agree with you that there are more than one in there, and that's
Yeah.
my observed experience. However, when you're
Sure.
trying to establish a shared understanding of something, right?
Yes.
You're you're in the world of the theoretical. So like
Yes. Okay.
we're discussing things in the framework that I believe in and agree with proceeding this way in the world, that we would discuss this and be like, yes, I agree that that's there. I'm certainly not trying to argue that it isn't as it appears.
Right.
Um, I'm not making an argument for solipsism,
Good.
but what I am saying is that uh, the experience that is happening that's observable is like there is an experience of a box being held up with
Hmm.
these things. All those words and labels, that's actually going into the theoretical understanding. There's just
Yes.
a raw experience occurring, and everything that's
Yes.
going to inform me about how I'm classifying it, that's going to come from this theoretical framework where we apply reason and make distinctions between things and all of that.
Yes.
So I'm trying to say that just raw experience itself, that is that is the primary place where reality
Hmm.
occurs, and then we can make, and I think very reasonable things can be said and claimed about that, and I'm fully on board
Yeah.
for operating in the world that way. I'm not trying to say that's
Good.
nonsense. I'm just trying to make it clear the position that I'm trying to establish. So
Okay.
I'll go. I guess it's like I'm happy to go along with you on this question, but I just wanted to make it
Hmm.
clear that once we start talking about this thing in a shared way, we're operating in that other realm.
Yes.
So I'm happy to do that though. So yes, there are a bunch of Tic Tacs there for sure.
Yeah, more than one. So, and would you agree that if we were to count these, we would have either an even or an odd number of candies, as long as we can agree on what a candy is and not little candy dusters.
Yes,
The number
yes, we
would
would.
be even or odd. So if I started off by saying, I think it's odd, am I right?
Um, I would say that we'd have to find out.
And I haven't counted. I don't
I
know.
would say that if you think
Yeah.
you're right when you made a guess, either you're a good guesser or you're not
Yeah.
making an informed
So
guess.
so I say it's odd, and Badenoff over there, because he's contrary, says no, it's even. Is
Okay.
one of us necessarily wrong?
Yes.
Great. We have the same reality. Let's keep going.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, we have the same shared objective theoretical framework, and I like a reasonable place to operate from. And I think that, like you were saying about perceptions earlier, it makes a lot of sense to question that your perceptions can lead you astray. So just
Yeah.
because you have a perception of something, I could see something out of the corner of my eye and be like, "It's a ghost," but
Hmm.
I will rely on my reasonable understanding and framework of reality to be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. Easy does it. Let's check this against all of these other things to come to that to be reasonable and to check
Hmm.
that potential error. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, I just want to, because for the interesting distinctions, it is important to have a clear understanding of like the difference between raw experience, um, as this kind of primary nature of reality, and then the world of interpretation, of reason, of analytics and synthetic ideas. So anyhow,
Okay, cool. I would love to hear about the implications of this idea because so far as definition, I don't need reasons for you to have a definition, especially if I can just accept and understand it. So implications now.
okay, great. So um, all right. So okay, so implications of this. Um, there are all of these experiences that occur to us that don't fall inside the framework of our theoretical and rational framework, just is not able to address them. They don't fall within the context of it. And basically, what I'm talking about here is the limits of reason. Um, reason has its limitations, and it is best used with its own understanding of that it cannot at this point be applied to all things. um, so there are this whole host of experiences that we can have as humans, that are interesting and worth interacting with, that reason will not be able to really go on that journey with us, at least not completely. Um, and so, one example of this is, if you were to ask me, if you were to talk about like a visionary, a seer, a saint, what have you, anything like that, somebody that says, "I talk to an angel," or "I see the future," or anything like that.
Okay.
Um, from my perspective, that report is basically indistinguishable from a report of someone who, say, was like schizophrenic and experiencing auditory hallucinations. Um,
Okay.
right. So, like, it's not clear to me, it's like you say God told you, someone else said, I heard the wall talk to me this morning. Those sound profoundly similar in the qualitatively, right? Um,
Okay.
but the thing is that because of the nature of because of this nature of reality, that these experiences will come into you, uh irrespective of whatever kind of rational framework you have. You will still experience them, and they will be indistinguishable from any other kind of reality to you in terms of experience. So for example, um someone might be like, you're going to go to hell if you do that. And we might have a rational reason to be like, I don't believe in that. But your rational disbelief in that won't necessarily save you from the experience of hell. And I don't mean this in a Bible thumping way. What I mean by this is that whether it's an event in the course of your life here, or it's something that's wrapped up in the experience of dying and death, one thing that seems possible, and there are strong arguments for it, is that something like time is subjective in how we experience it. You can experience
Okay.
time dilation. Did you want to get in there?
No, I was just saying, okay, yes. Time is subjective.
Right. So you could experience time dilation. You could experience time like going very quickly. Like we had that has the subjective part of it. Um, if you were to find yourself at the experience of meeting your own demise, perishing, um, and you find yourself going through this experience that never seems to end, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And during that experience, it's turning out really badly. Like things are getting worse and worse, and you're actually having to go through this nightmare of insanity and death as your like mind falls apart around you. Um, there are people who have like come along who try to address things, and I'm not saying that they're saying I'm talking exactly what Chris is talking about, but if you don't mind, I'll just share a couple of quick quotes, very brief quotes that I think talk about it
Sure,
better
sure,
than
sure.
I can. So from the Tao Te Ching, there's this line where he says, "He who dies but does not really perish enjoys long life." Hmm, what does that mean? um, and then,
He who dies and doesn't die, something, something. That sounds to me like after falsehood, anything follows. Principle of explosion problem. You just said if something is and is not, then therefore
well,
something.
sort of, and I'll give you that the Tao Te Ching is poetic, and you're going to find a lot of poetics in this kind of thought. But he who dies but does not really perish enjoys long life. Now, I'm going to completely agree with you that if you were to try to take that statement and put it inside the context of a logical framework, it's immediately going to fall apart on itself, right? And that's exactly my point.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the thing is that what he's getting at here um, is that it occurs in a space that is not able to be addressed within this rational theoretical framework. Nevertheless, it experiences and it occurs in the context of actual lived and dying, I suppose, experience, right? And so therefore is like interesting to me to be like, okay, here's all of the area that, and I love to do this to try to establish a robust understanding of the world with logically coherent principles and axioms and all of that. And then there's all of this other experience that happens that just doesn't fit into the context of that. So like, to put this directly again, I have a couple quotes written down here because it's just I find it really helpful. um, and this one is, do you mind if I just do fire off one more?
Please go ahead.
Okay, great. So, uh, this is just all very brief, but a string of quotes from Pascal from his Pensée, which means thoughts. So, says the last proceeding of reason is to recognize that there is an infinity of things which are beyond it. There is nothing so conformable to reason as this disavowal of reason. Um, so he's saying that like reason is able to recognize that it's limited, and reason is able to recognize that there's a whole host of things that exist in the universe and exist in terms of experience that it is not that don't fall within its domain, at least yet. Um, and so it's conformable to reason to be like, this is my limit. And that's what he means by disavowal. So like
Yeah,
there
sure.
comes a point, right? And this one I think
Yeah,
really,
recognition of our own limits of confidence. Very important.
yeah. And then there are things that occur both in what we seem to believe is out in the world and things that occur internally to us in our experience that reason isn't giving us a lot of help with, and that we are that are either as yet unexplained, um,
Hmm.
or that there might be actual aspects of reality that defy reason to
Hmm.
be explained by it. This one
Could you
really.
could you
Go
give
ahead.
me an example of one of those? I don't actually have in mind something that is difficult for me to apprehend through reason.
Oh, sorry, it's my laptop. My bad. Um, so yeah, okay, an experience that is not captured by reason. Um,
And maybe I misunderstood you if I said that funny.
well, I mean, I think that there are like he says in the quote, there's an infinite amount of things that are not captured by reason. Um,
Hmm.
uh, actually, so one very uh, raw one is just the nature of experience itself, which relates to this conversation about qualia and things like that. So
So the
redness,
hard problem of consciousness.
sure. The hard
Okay.
problem of consciousness cannot be captured and explained by reason. Um, but also just the simple fact of redness. Reason cannot tell you about redness. Reason can tell you all sorts of things about like how redness arises through the functions of the mind and wavelengths and things like that. But the quality of red, the actual quality of redness, it's ineffable. There's nothing. There are no words to explain or get at that. Um, and it's really pretty expansive that way, what reason can and cannot touch. But there's also things that, and this gets into more of a spiritual, mystical side of things. There are what appear to be paradoxical elements and mysteries that exist in life that seem to be almost like, I'm not in any way talking about intelligent design or anything like that. They seem to be the kind of thing that like literally defies reason. Like there are all of these spiritual teachings and maxims that suggest, like if you want to, it's like if you want to, if you try to hold on to something, that's the worst way of actually trying to capture it. Because if you they're like this idea of like receiving wisdom in this Eastern way, the way they would talk about it is like you can't try to hold it. If you're not concerned with holding it, then you'll already have it. If you try to hold on to it, then there's no way of actually having this. Now, I'm not trying to argue for the reality of that concept. What I'm trying to do is give you an example of like what I'd be interested in understanding better from that kind of mind. Um, and so what they're telling me is that if you want to walk down this path and explore, you know, these experiences that are out here, you're going to have to figure out when it is appropriate to correctly leave reason behind and have the experience, which is something
Okay.
that I think is important about this. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this. Yeah.
Okay. So it seems like the claim could be there are times when it is appropriate to not rely on reason, and there are times when it's appropriate to rely on reason.
Yes. I mean, I agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
And learning.
Uh, okay.
Yes.
So Kimberly, if you would type that, there are times when it's appropriate to rely on reason, and times when it's not. Uh, yeah. So on that claim that there are times when it's appropriate to leave reason behind, what's your confidence? Would that be the same 95?
Um. Hmm. Oh. I guess I wouldn't put it at a 95. I mean, I guess if the claim is that there are literally times that you should leave reason behind, then I would feel pretty confident in that. I guess what I would say is I'm not confident in my ability to always know the difference. So like
Sure.
me trying to enact that,
Right, right.
I
We're
am
not
not
saying whether you know when is in each category. That would be a different
right.
claim.
Right.
But
But the claim itself,
that
yeah, I
there
feel
are the two categories, that there are examples in column B and examples in column A. That's
yeah, I
the
would say so.
that's the strict
Yes.
claim. So 95 on that one. Great, thank you.
I would sure 90 why don't we call it 90? I feel not as
90.
rock solid. I'll give it a 90.
Okay, good. Very good. Thank you. Okay, can you give me reasons why there are times when we should leave reasons behind?
Sure. Um yeah, I and this would fall into like the category of lived experience. So w- when there was a point in time when uh, I became attracted to this girl when I was in college, right? And I just knew, like, in a way that and I had a confidence about that I'd never experienced before. Um, and you know, she wasn't really like opening up to me. I would think I was making her a little bit nervous because I was being kind of forward, and being, I was like trying to invite her over and things like that. Um, and I never, I wasn't like a pushy, like I didn't do anything that I'm not proud of in that, but nevertheless, like I remember waking up. I think I had like a dream about her, and that day I remember she actually, like, I think, like, hid from me. I was like, she saw me coming and like knew that I was probably going to try to talk to her again or something, and she like clearly like ducked into some place to like get away from me. Great. Um, but I it didn't shake my confidence at all, and I threw a party just to like have the excuse to have her over, and I knew her friends would go, and then we ended up talking, and we ended up having like a great relationship, and it was really kind of beautiful. But the dream that I had about her and the vision that I had, and the feeling of confidence, I didn't interrogate it with reason. I think there were some reasonable things that I could have expressed to myself to say, like, maybe not. Like, maybe the fact that she's kind of like ducking into this room is like a good reason to like leave her alone. And I guess I'm not saying entirely that like uh that you couldn't dissect this from a reasonable standpoint and talk about our
Hmm.
instincts and dreams and things like that. Off the top
Sure.
of my head, I was trying to like reach for something. But there are a number of things where I would say an ecstatic awareness of what's occurring around me or in my life, have led to some of the most treasured experiences that I've had. And it was recognizing a self-affirming sense of reality, that I hear these people that I'm referring to, they talk about this reality, and it strengthens my ability to operate in that space. And their poetic way of talking about things is often confirmed in my lived experience that there's more here going on than I can always dissect analytically.
Okay, so sometimes some things are not amenable to reason because they are too complex for us to analyze, and we have to go with intuition or something less to avoid analysis paralysis.
That's a way of thinking about it. There um I guess like I'm trying to give you a better example that's still like not getting entirely into like a religious experience or something like that,
Yeah,
because honestly,
and I don't mind the religious experience. That's totally in bounds. By the way, I really, really like and steal that idea. If I'm having a hard time uh, getting the communication I want with somebody, I'm going to throw a party so I can invite them to it.
it worked that time.
Yeah, that seems like a low risk thing because the worst case is they don't show up and I still have a party.
That for sure, for sure.
Yeah,
That's a really good point.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a nice
Um,
opt in. I like it.
so let's see. You know, there's like another tangible example is something to think about is uh, fast friends. I work with kids a lot, and you'll see kids just immediately connect almost the first time they
Hmm.
met and just be best
Okay.
friends, as though it was just something that was known to them. This is kind of getting at like the character and the mood of self-affirming knowledge, that uh, I think that we do have an innate access to. Um,
Hmm.
but
It's a new
uh,
term. I haven't self affirming knowledge yet.
okay,
Not
yeah, well
familiar with
that
it.
That's definitely in the cohort of thinkers that like to play around with these ideas. Self-affirming knowledge is an idea that a way that they might talk about it. Um,
Okay.
and then here's the thing is that so I'll get into a religious experience, but again, I think this is going to be hard to use compared to some of these other experiences. But
Okay.
I have
I mean,
had
if we think it might be difficult, I can skip onto the hypotheticals. We could come back to that.
we can do whatever. Yeah,
And
go. Let's go where you want to go.
okay. And I don't want to cap you. So if it's still helpful, just steer right into it. Hypothetically, what could you learn tomorrow? Something doesn't have to be true that would increase your confidence from 90 up to say 97 that it's true. Sometimes reason shouldn't be the tool that you use when making a decision or coming to understand a thing, or maybe market behavior. I'm not really sure what the distinction would be, but you maybe know better than I do.
Um, yeah, I mean, if I had a feeling like an intuition that was powerful, but just utterly inexplicable to me. Like, even though I try to stop and analyze it, I'm like, I do not know why I want to do this so badly. And it leads me to something profound. That's the kind of
Okay.
experience that I would have. In fact, on a kind of the flip side of the coin of that one relationship I had an odd experience one night. I was walking through town, and I was on the edges of getting involved in a relationship, and I was having, to me, what was like a mystical experience. I'm an artist and things like that, and every once in a while, I mean, this is once in a big while, I'll have
Hmm.
these a night where it is like an onslaught of creative energy, and connections are being formed that that it's rare. And instead of
Hmm.
having like a burst of inspiration or realization, it's just an outpouring of it. And I'm just like,
Hmm.
whoa, whoa, that like, and it's this kind of intense thing. And I was walking around, and I knew that that door was opening right now, and the door to this relationship was opening, but I could only have one. And she was walking
Mm.
down the street behind me, and I didn't know she was there. And I was all like, I was just like tripping out, not literally, but like, it's basically
Hmm.
what, like, I was just totally like doing this thing. And in my head, I was thinking, like, I can't do this relationship right now because this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And right when I was thinking that, before I was like gonna get back and call her, she was like, Chris, she's back here. And I turn around and like, there she is. And it was
Oh,
like, she was right behind me on the street, like down a little ways. And she was like, hey,
yeah.
like she'd been trying to get my attention. And it was like that was the fulcrum, like, she was gonna come over, I was gonna lose
Mm.
this, like, experience that I was having, but it was like she was being so sweet, and she was such like a
Hmm.
puppy dog, like, at that time, just, like, coming and, like, being way back there, and she was even saying, she was like, "I don't have to," because she thought I was, like, ignoring her, she was like, We don't have to,"
Mm.
and I felt like I was like, "Oh god," and so I was like, "Ah," and I was like, "Alright," like, "Yeah, yeah, no, like, come on over."
Hmm.
And that relationship was a nightmare. Like,
Uh-oh.
that was not good. And
Do
my
you think that
instinct
start
there,
would should have been a red flag in any regard?
oh, there were plenty of red flags, but what I still don't understand is, like,
Hmm.
how if there is a rational way of explaining the math that my subconscious
Okay.
was doing then, I don't understand it. I don't understand it
Okay.
at all because I was this fulcrum of like, here's the creative road opening up for you, Chris. Like, dive in. Here's your night. Go for it. But you have a clear choice. It felt spiritual in nature. And maybe there is a way of rationally explaining all of that. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that there isn't, but what I am saying is that it was profound, and it
Hmm.
is, and the the more spiritual thought that I have, more immediately is relatable and helps me understand that kind of moment
Okay.
in life than any interrogation of it from an analytical interrogation has. So
Okay.
maybe that's an example.
I think that's a hypothetical that should move you. I think what I heard was if you had experiences where it was inexplicable and then turned out very profound, that would increase your confidence that there are times when reason is not the way to approach a thing. So I want to ask the hypothetical in the other direction. What's something you could learn tomorrow? It doesn't have to be true. That would reduce your confidence below 90, maybe even as far as 50.
Okay.
That that reason, yeah, you know what the claim is.
Yeah. Um, so if I'm going to give two quick examples of what would shake my confidence. One of them would be if I was to come across powerful reasoning on the subjects that I'm talking about that is able to describe what it is that a mystic or a seer or someone like Buddha or the Tao Te Ching, what it is they're accomplishing in terms of like how it's activating my sense of understanding, how it's doing that,
Oh,
and provide a complete framework for what's occurring there,
okay. So if there
without.
became a scientific description of how koan or these other ideas can influence your mind in these positive ways,
Yeah,
that
and hopefully
okay.
adequately describe, like, either disprove the kind of realities that they're trying to describe, or actually account for them. Either way, really. Like if they, because it's not just that they do have a powerful kind of poetic influence, but they also say things about, they make claims about reality that I find um, substantial. But again, in more of this like internal irrational way. So if they were able
Okay.
to either dismiss or address those, or if they were, I mean, if they were simply able to really describe what was happening to me as being someone influenced by them and why I was prone to that in this significant way, in a way that I found was a fair treatment of the subject, that would, I would listen to that, and
Okay.
I am open to that. Another thing that could happen is if another thing that would probably rock me that way is if I was to come into contact with someone who I believed was like that. If I was ever to meet somebody that I thought was an authentic seer, and then they turned out to be a fraud. Like if I was to be fully convinced and have the experience of being like, I've met this figure that is just like these other figures, and then I'm like, oh no, they're charlatans. That would rock my world for sure.
So would that lead you to a higher probability that the prior examples were charlatans because you saw an example of someone doing that was a charlatan?
It would, I would say that that would like make me deeply question it. So my confidence level
Okay.
would go down, because then I would,
Cool. Cool.
if I'm fully engaged or entrapped by somebody that but like I'll be honest with you, I really don't expect that to happen because it's difficult for me to, these like the experiences that I've had with these thinkers, it's pretty whole. So like
Hmm.
I would be blown away if that happened, but
Okay.
I am open to it. And I think that if you're not open to it, then you've already
Yeah.
you've
Yeah. I
switched it
hear you.
off.
You got to be doxastically open or you can't learn much. Um, sorry if I'm dropping jargon.
Oh, you're good.
Let's see. Uh, very good. So my feedback, it seems like your reasons for thinking that reason is not always the best choice are at least directly relating to your claim. I think your reasons do point to your claim. I think there's a big hole of unknown in there somewhere. Uh, that if you don't know a thing or if you can't understand a thing, then you decide that reason is not the way to get to that thing. You have to go with intuition and experience, almost out of a utilitarian perspective. At least I can get with intuition. I can at least get to an action rather than getting stuck in an infinite regressive analysis. Your hypotheticals both seem to be things that should move your confidence. That's great. That shows me you are not doxastically stuck. You're not stuck on a place. We thump the meter and the needle rolls, and it's good. So I think your confidence, given the values and reasons that you've specified, seems in line. So 2 thumbs up. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Production, are there any comments in the text that we should address? And then after that, we can open it up to the room for feedback.
Yes, we have a couple of questions.
Do you mind if I just want to say one thing, but then we'll get it. This is super, super quick. I don't think I got to say this, but I really feel like this quote boils it down in a lot of ways, specifically with this conversation about reason. And this is also Pascal. He says, 2 extremes: to exclude reason, to admit reason only. 2 extremes. And so, like, rather necessarily as setting it up as though, like, just because I don't have a reasonable way of looking into this, therefore I'm going to rely on lesser means. It's more to say that the world is not completely explainable by reason.
Yeah.
And, don't stop your investigation and your experience of life just because, like, don't be afraid to go out and explore what is there, just because reason isn't going to be the thing that can help you get the full experience. It's okay to have both. So that's it.
Yeah, I think in practice, that's how I operate with my life. So yes, yeah, I rely upon intuition a lot of the time when I can't grasp it analytically.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, FK, did we have comments that you'd like to check, and then we can open up the room?
Yes, we have one question from Gauss Prime. And this was when you were mentioning about objective, subjective, theoretical, what those mean. He asks, does the objective equals theoretical mean that the objective reality can change with better theory / new understanding? Do you want me to repeat?
Is that for me?
Yes.
That's a question for me.
Yes. Do you want me to repeat?
Oh, no, I got it. I heard it. So, yeah, the key word there is going to be knowledge. So it's objective knowledge of reality. So, like, it's not that the knowledge is objectively true and just classifying the kind of knowledge. It's the knowledge that we believe is about objective reality. That knowledge can change. Arguably, maybe objective reality does change. Like, I don't know if the laws of physics change slowly over time. I'm not operating in that framework. I'm not operating in that framework. I think, but who knows? But I tend to think of objective reality as something that the essence of it, the truth of it, if it's out there, doesn't change, but our understanding of it could change as our understanding evolves. And so the changeable part wouldn't be the objective reality, it would be our knowledge of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, for Dali we have one comment on the content and one on the delivery. The content is 0 is actually an even number, and this is widely agreed upon in mathematics. The question is more debated when it's divided by 0 or 0 to the power of 0. I don't know if those are agreed upon, but 0 is even. We can do a session on that.
0 can be even. I would firmly reject that 0 could be.
Okay. Now on the SE part, one thing that I also think you did on both times when you try and ask how would Chris increase or lower the level of how convinced he is.
The hypotheticals up and down.
Yes. So you say, let's say we learn X, and it doesn't have to be true. That's the way you phrase it. The X being whatever. When you say, and it doesn't have to be true, I think it leaves room for it to be misinterpreted, especially with people that are less philosophical, because you're kind of saying, okay, let's say we learn that we find proof for math or whatever, but that's not true.
Yes.
Instead of saying that, what I've heard, I'm not sure if it's Reed or Anthony, but they say, and that's not necessarily the case. So instead of saying, and that doesn't have to be true,
not necessarily the case.
but that's not necessarily the case. So, for example, tomorrow we learn that, I know, Muhammad was born in Egypt. That's not necessarily true, but if we were to learn that, because if you say that, okay, if we were to learn that X, but that's not true, it seems like asking someone to accept a contradiction.
That I use not the case as opposed to not true formulate.
Yes, when you say, let's say we learn X.
Is this because I'm introducing the notion of truth into the conversation when I hadn't done before in terms of the definition?
I don't know. It just sounds like you are saying that let's learn this, but it's not true. It sounds like you are asking for your interlocutor to accept a contradiction.
Oh,
because you are saying, let's say we learn this, but that's not true. Like, if you think about it, that's like, wait, what?
If I say, what if we learn this thing tomorrow? This doesn't have to be actually something that's true. Could maybe if I'm shortening too many words out of it, then I might be actually proposing a contradiction if I take it literally. I see that. I will try to work on that formulation.
I think everybody here understands it because we have heard these kind of questions and we know what you mean. But coming from a fresh person from the street, for example, doing essay like that, it can seem confusing. So I think it's good to be a bit less ambiguous there. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. A couple of you in the after show later, hit me up. Let's practice that. Let me see if I can figure out a better way to say it. Thank you for that. Is everybody unmuted and able to feedback? No, I'm not hearing anybody.
It looks like almost everybody's muted, but also
they might be self-muted at this point.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it might be that they put everything in text that they had ready to talk about, and that's okay.
I can talk.
You can talk. I hear you. Good. Thank you. All right. So if all of the feedback has been typed, I appreciate that. Somebody muted. I heard something. I'm not sure. Cat of Blades says everybody's unmuted. Okay.
Okay, great.
And I think Cat of Blades may have something to say.
Please do.
There we go.
There you go. Yes, please.
So there was something that I was thinking about, and I'm going to try to remember it here real quick. It had to do with the knowledge and the outside reality of the universe. And I don't remember. So you don't think that learning new things will change reality by itself, or at least you don't know whether or not we can learn that's the case or not.
I don't believe that learning about reality changes reality. I think it's our knowledge that changes.
Okay. Do you think that maybe so what Juggling Lessons was talking about, that if you wanted to think about something that science can't currently explain, you have like an infinite number of choices of things that you could go down the rabbit hole of, and so you can't necessarily rationalize everything. I think of that as like a thing that happens in our minds, that our brain is trying to rationalize by going down every possible path, and that that might be where we even get the idea of consciousness from. Because possibly, just because our brain is thinking down more paths than we can keep track of doesn't mean that it's not doing that. You know, it might be thought of as unexplainable because it's hard to communicate, but the halting problem is what I'm thinking about. It's like a computer cannot fully comprehend its own operation. So necessarily, there must be some mystery about at least our own consciousness. So I was trying to find a question somewhere in there, and I apologize. I seem to have forgotten exactly what I was going to ask. But
I mean, I think
those were my thoughts on the subject.
I think I hear you. You know, if every aspect of reality is ultimately eventually something that can be fully rationally explained, then I might be wrong about the way that I'm looking at things, and that'd be okay. You know,
I don't think it's necessarily the case that we will come to a rational explanation of everything. I think with quantum mechanics, the many worlds theory, like we cannot in one timeline grasp all that is going on in reality.
yes, that so theoretically, some intelligence might be able to comprehend everything, or like theoretically, like whether or not any human being or any even society or anything like that will ever be able to fully comprehend enough, that you could argue that it's just a poverty of information and understanding, and access and things like that, that there could be a fully rational perspective on the world. However, you could also similarly argue that we there might be it might take more than reason to actually come to fully to terms with all of the aspects of life, and that doesn't sound like an unreasonable position to hold to me. um yeah.
Thank you, Kat. Does anybody else have any further feedback?
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Hold on one sec.
Yep.
Had a couple of comments.
Mm-hmm.
Tried to take notes, and I think I lost my notes. No, there they are. I think Juggling, you're really good at, when he goes on for quite a long time, you're really good at summarizing what he's saying, but I see you often tend to take it a step further and try to figure out where he's going. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I just see you doing it quite a lot.
Okay, good. Good to know.
I'm not sure
that I seem to be leading forward now maybe this is a curse of knowledge because Chris and I have talked before, so I might be summarizing not just from what we've said right now, but something I've heard prior, and I've included it. Chris, do you think that I led ahead of you today at any of those times, or was I maybe just saying things I knew?
I don't, that hadn't occurred to me. And I'm new to SE, so like I'm not always thinking through those kinds of protocols.
Right. It is my goal to summarize only what you said in this conversation, but I'm very imperfect at that. Certainly.
I will say this is that I can be I can be slippery, because I can be really verbose and like throw out a bunch of examples, and so I really enjoy talking to you. I could imagine if somebody wanted to hold me to limited principles and make sure that I wasn't making leaps that they might want to interject more to try to like not let me run off into one poetic description after another.
Okay, thank you.
No, I just meant that it might have been right at the beginning, that one instance where you tried to steelman him, and then you then took it to this must follow afterwards, kind of thing.
Oh, okay. So I might have steelmanned and then moved into a question without making it obvious that I was stepping from one thing to the next.
When did you steelman? I don't. When did that happen?
This was right at the beginning. Most of these notes I made were right at the beginning.
I'm just repeating back to you the very short idea of steelmanning your idea back to you, as opposed to taking a position that I don't hold and running with.
And then once you've understood it, you then try to give an example of how I understood it. And
okay,
that's what I noticed, and I thought that was a pretty good thing that you were doing.
Thank you.
I also noticed a few instances of where he asked, "Do you understand?" or "Do you understand?" or "Do you follow what I'm saying?" I think that would have been, when you hear someone say that, that's a really good point of when you should steelman somebody. And a lot of times you would just brush it and say, "Yeah," but I think you want to take those opportunities to then, show that you're listening.
Okay, so I should steelman back more. I should actively listen a little more interjectingly.
Well, mostly when when someone says, "You know what I mean," or "Do you follow what I'm saying?" just so that you show that you're totally following.
Okay.
Even if it's like what.
Good. I'll be reviewing this back later today, is my habit, and I will try to look for areas where I could interject more.
And one other thing, this is like another question. When you brought out the Tic Tac question,
yes.
What if he said no? He said yes, that I understand, and went where you were going. But what if he said no?
If he said no, okay. So the two ways for it to go in that no is one, that no, it's not true that there's either an even or odd number in here, and that would tell me that I'm dealing with truth subjectivism kind of all the way down. I guess also maybe the no would be, if I said odd and Boris says even, that one of us is necessarily wrong. If he said no, that's not true, then I know that I'm dealing with truth subjectivism, a definition of truth that is not about what corresponds to reality, but corresponds entirely with knowledge inside the mind. And so I've got to take his input as an idealist position as opposed to a materialist position or other kinds of compatibilist.
All right, that's all I wanted to go down. I think you could probably do a whole session.
Like the end of it. For a lot of SEers, if you can't get down to a truth objectivity, they're done. And I don't know where I sit in that. I don't know if I'm not going to terminate the conversation, but it might not continue to be useful SE. We'll see.
You could probably do a whole episode on that Tic Tac and what if someone said no. So I'll let it. So that's all I had so far.
That's actually one of the questions I'm going to add, Kimberly, if you'll make a note. The question of to my experts, what would you do if someone said no to the question, is there odd or even Tic Tac? Something like that. Thank you.
Flowchart. Make a flowchart.
Make a flowchart. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Make a flowchart.
It's Mr. Flowchart.
Yes.
I might actually,
if any of you have, go ahead.
Just for fun, sometime I might actually try to steelman that.
Sure.
Just as an exercise, because I can see some places where you could open up. I think it's pure sophistry to do this, but like I could see where you could open up some angles of attack on trying to describe why there are not any odd or even count on the Tic Tacs. That could be fun to do.
Yeah, that would be an interesting steelman and very welcome. So yeah, definitely.
We have another question from the
as long as you don't
chat.
Schrodinger's cat it.
Go ahead.
No, Schrodinger's Tic Tac.
Okay, we have one other question from the chat, which says, are you including science in your reason, or you identify that science is using reason? That's a question by 3XK.
That sounds like it's for me.
Yeah, that question.
Yeah, science, any kind of rational framework for understanding reality. Certainly anything shared with language, all of those things are going to be in the objective, in the category of our objective knowledge about reality. So yes.
Okay, thank you.
Science is in there.
I hope that addressed 3X's question well, 3XK. Is there any further feedback from anybody? Do anybody have any further commentary you'd like to bring in? No, I should. There's rules about, no, you can't have music in public. What are you thinking? All right. If there's no further questions, thank you very much for coming. This is gone. Here are 5 of my favorite SE specific related channels. I invite you to visit them. If you want links, go through. You're already in YouTube, and if you look the featured channels. Thank you. If you are really interested in this topic of street epistemology, one of my favorite resources is on streetepistemology.com. There's resources tabs and a whole bunch of stuff. Go ahead and research that. It's fun. Sounds good stuff. Let's see. Thank you very much to Chris and all the other guests here. I couldn't do this. I wouldn't do this without you. I really appreciate you engaging yourselves. If you would like to be a guest on my show, I have 8 different categories of things that we do here. As long as it's on the topic of SE, we'll work it in. Look forward to hearing. Thank you.
Thanks very much.